Right, again, here we go for another of NickTuts. I'm Nick. These are my tuts. As you can see, we're starting with a pair of gentlemen that you may recognise. Mr. Walter White and Mr. Jesse Aaron Lewis.
It's Aaron Paul, you jerk.
Hey, Mr. White. That's my impression. Yeah, bitch. Magnets. It's all right. I can't do Walter, though. So, this tutorial is a biggie because this is an immense amount of time of photoshopping that you will do. That's not making sense anyway. So, we're going to be selecting different ways of selecting and different things masks can do and whatnot. It's a lot to take in, so sit back, relax, get comfortable, and we shall begin. So, double click that because I'm going to be editing it. So, selecting first. There are lots of ways of selecting things. I'm going to start with the magic wand tool. Because there are, from what I can see here, if, say I want to cut Mr. White out. Oh, Control and D. If I want to cut him out, for automatic cutting, that you, as in you don't have to draw around yourself, you're looking for big changes in color and between them and the background. So here it's clearly yellow, it's clearly red, and this is clearly not the same color as his skin, it's not the same color as this. So if I click here, it should theoretically only select these types of yellows. I would be concerned, but they're very different yellows. That's more orange than that. So if I go click, it does as I expected. And then if I shift click, it will start adding more bits to the selection. And if it starts mucking you, pillock, Command Z, if it starts mucking you about and you end up cutting bits of the image, like I'm not going to want this part taken, but because it's got some of that color in when I magic wand in it, it's going to take it out.
Hey, I'd like to introduce you to my daughter, Lucy.
I didn't know you had a daughter. Hello, Lucy.
Now, Lucy is very limited in her responses, but she does know how to say one thing. She learned a very important lesson very early on. Now, Lucy, what do you have to say to the man, huh?
You're a jerk.
Yeah, that's my girl. Now, I came to explain something you missed for not the first time.
Fine. Take it away, Tommy.
If you were selecting using the magic wand tool and you happen to click on a section you didn't want, hover over that section and you'll see that a minus symbol appears, so when you click it, it will remove that which you had mistakenly selected. Hey, also, don't forget the tolerance setting, as this will help you be more specific with your selection. I'm done.
Cheers for that, Tommy. It's at this stage, it's not that much of a problem because you're going to be masking it. You see? But anyway, back to the magic wand. So I just want to cut Mr. White out as cleanly as possible. So I'm just clicking, shift clicking areas where it's not selecting it when it should have done, like here and there. And obviously this is red, that's yellow, so it should do all right here. It has done. And if you get these bits, just shift click like crazy, because it's gonna, every pixel you click, it's gonna find the same instance of that pixel elsewhere, and it will also select it. So that's why you just go stab happy with your pen, click happy with your mouse, click happy with your mouse. So I'm clicking happy. There we are. Now that's not done a bad job of selecting this bit. So if I now click this for the mask on the layer, if it does that, Command Z, you can Alt click on the mask and it will, oh crikey, Command Z, Alt click on the mask, it will invert it for you. But if it doesn't, you just press Command I, Control I, and it will invert the mask. Black to white, white to black. There we go. So it's not done a bad job there, actually, of cutting out Mr. White. And obviously you've got these bits here where it's cut too much of the screen. I've actually got the spacebar programmed onto my pad, so I don't need to keep reaching over for the keyboard. So this is drastic. You've lost so much. But this, again, this is why masks are phenomenal, because they're non-destructive. So if I shift click the mask, everything's still there. So all I need to do is paint back in the areas that the mask has taken, and I do so with the brush tool. Um, and just do my little control alt click. I want to, and again, because I'm looking at the edges, if I hang on, if I shift click the mask, it's not like this line here isn't very blurred at all. It's slightly blurred between the background and that thing. So my brush sharp softness, my apologies, should kind of match that. It's obvious that that's too blurry. That's no blur at all. So I want to try and find a happy medium, which probably about, I suppose, that 63, 60. We'll go nice even 60. So if I put my mask back on with a shifty click, I put a little shift click on the mask, and it comes back at that. So obviously this, I mean, this is going to take editing anyway, but just for in terms of actually adding the stuff back in. So masks, what's white will reveal what's underneath. What's black will hide what's underneath. So effectively the mask being on the right of this picture is on top of that. So if I paint in black, I will tell the mask, I don't want to see this bit anymore. So it's going to cut it out like that. Come on, Z. But if I paint in white, it will paint back in what's still underneath the mask. So if I obviously if I go too far and I'm obviously starting to get the background back in, just press X, go back to white.
You mean black, you jerk?
Yep, cheers, Tommy. Paint it back to the area that you know it goes to. It turns out that this blurs too much, I think, for this because that's not too blurred. So I'm gonna make my hardness increase to 80%. Let's try that. Yeah, that's better. So that kind of, the edge of my brush kind of matches the edge of his goggles. And it also matches the background. It's nice. All right, sweet. So, oh, I've gone too far again. White, let's get his goggles back in. Okay, but I mean, you get the gist. Like, if you go too far, just press X, go back to black, and paint it away. Z, Alt Z, Alt Z, Alt Z. Okay, so that's a fairly cool way of doing things that will select it nicely. Command. So now if I just delete this layer mask, we'll make a new one. And this time, I mean the quick selection. You don't need me to show you that. You get the gist again. That will just look. Although I don't know if I've explained this. I tried these tutorials a couple of times, and the first time I didn't plan anything, and it was terrible. I went on for like 49 minutes. Boy, can't talk for that long. But I think I did cover it yesterday. The quick selection, so it's looking for those pixels. It's doing a good job again because there are such differences between the foreground and the background. Some pictures, it might be dark in the background, and the shadow is making the side of his face dark, which means if you did this, it wouldn't know which way to go. But this, again, is actually done a fairly decent job. Apart from that, I believe if you Alt click, then you're deleting that part. So some things you don't want selected. But that's done a bang tidy job, that does. I'm quite impressed with that, actually. Like, I wouldn't use it myself most of the time, but I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. So if I press the mask, I think if I press Alt, nah, not that time. So if I just make a mask, there you go, he's masked him out, which is pretty cool. Of course, when we look in closer, we've got a mess here, and then I'll show you how to deal with that in a bit. All right, so let's just Command Z, Command D. Another way is the pen tool. So I've used this a lot. I used it a lot more before I had a pad. No, not so much, but there are still plenty of times that the pen tool is the shiznay. And this is one of them. So, same thing again. You're going all the way around the object, and then when you close the path, you right click, make selection. Okay, done. So then if I made a mask now, I would have a lovely image of Mr. Walter White's right shoulder. That's nice. Oh, have I got a sneeze? Come on. Oh, don't just sit there. Don't. Oh, you son of a bitch. Right. And the way that I do most of my masking nowadays is I just paint because I got a pad and it's just easier. So that was too much before, wasn't it? So I would just you know, bosh. And the reason I prefer to do it this way is because if you notice when we zoomed in earlier, if I cut this, like all those automatic tools will kind of leave this couple of pixel fringe that shows you that it's blatantly, like here you wouldn't know. Here it's blatantly not, it's been cut out. So the reason I enjoy the pen tool or the brush tool and using my pad is that I can get the exact blurring I want. I can remove any fringing on the fly. And sometimes if you go too far, you've gone too far again. It doesn't matter. You just keep going. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Like, keep going too far. Because if you go too far, as long as your edge is nice, then you ain't, people will be convinced that it's not been cut out. So that's the way I prefer to do it. I'm a stickler for accuracy, you see. So fairly well. Oh, hang on. What have I done here? Have I pressed tab or something? I have. If you press tab by accident, it does that. It's like a full screen preview type job. It removes the bars. Just press it again. Bring that stuff back. Command Z, Command Z, Command Alt Z, 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 Z. Reverse. There is another way to mask something, but I will show you that in another tutorial. In the next, maybe the next tut. The next tut, I will show you how to do the leveling type of select shift tool. Because one tool that I use quite regularly would not really work in this picture. I will reuse this picture and show you what I mean by it ain't going to work. I mean, to a point it would work, but not as much as I would like. And that's like a leveling technique it's called, but it's not called that. I'm calling it that because that's the tool I use. Yeah, so, and one other thing. Say, let me just, I think Control Delete or Alt Delete. Alt Delete. Alt Delete will give me a black mask. So I've just hidden that entire picture. Say now if I want to reveal Mr. White, I would have to go into white and then just paint back over the picture using white. I'm back on the mask and I'm just bringing out Mr. White again. Hello, fella. Now, I don't need to do this very often, but there are times when I have needed to do it, and I'm glad I know how to do it. Is this icon here means that the mask is stuck rigidly to Mr. White. So if I move Mr. White, the layer goes with it. So the mask that I've created will always stay over Mr. White. If I press this, then if I move the mask, oh, I'm just revealing Jesse. I go back, I'm back over Mr. White. I go back over Jesse, edit Mr. White. So that's what that does. You can even move the picture underneath the mask, or you can move the mask instead of the picture. But that just kind of links them. It's rare that I turn that off, but there have been points when I've needed to. Now, there is another, what are we on? 13. I can fit a bit more and maybe just get it to 15. Hang on. Come on. Sweet. Right. There is one other thing which I will show you briefly.
What he attempts to cover in the next 5 minutes needs way more than 5 minutes. This jerk should have known better. Now, he's talking about the Refine Mask option, which is available by clicking the mask. Then, in its Properties panel, click Select and Mask. Now, this is a very intricate way of editing the edges of a mask, but it requires attention to detail that this jerk just doesn't have. Now, he never uses it, and therefore should not be trying to teach you about it. Now, I would recommend the Google to find out more about Select and Mask.
As I say, there's another way to select things, but I'm going to cover that in the next tutorial, which is about hair.
You know there's only one more left in this series, right?
Funnily enough, Tommy, yes, I am aware.
Well, that doesn't give me a lot of time.
To do what?
To make sure that everyone is completely aware that you're a total jerk. So long.